first thing on your handout is that you need lots of sun. So this is what you need. So if you have, it's really 6 hours. 8 would be great, but it's lots of sun is what you need. And you need some sort of protection from the predators, because that's a trouble. I like to say squirrels, but it's rats and birds. So I have this cage. I can't imagine that you would have your husband build this cage, but what they also have is netting. You can use netting. So when you put your tomato in the ground, then you put a cage. Can you see those metal cages? And everyone knows what a tomato cage looks like. It's just a round barrel thing that goes on top of it. And you can put your netting over that. And that will keep the birds. That's the next best thing. And then there's also a thing, it's little red glitter tape kind of flyers. And you can get it at Southwest Fertilizer. You can get it at, I'm sure Buchanan's has it. Any kind of independent gardening store will have it. And it's just it's probably called bird tape or reflective tape. And so you just tie it on and it blows in the wind. But so that kind of keeps them away. But that's not as good as netting. And another thing is that what the birds are actually doing is they're trying to get water. So that's what they want out of that tomato, is they want to get the water in it. So it's not like they're super attractive. I mean, it is attractive, but they don't want it just for that. They really want to drink. So if you could have, like, I have water here in this garden. If you could have some sort of water somewhere, that would help. So when you're going to do your rows of tomatoes, you need to do the tall ones in the back, just like almost you would do your landscape in your yard, your bushes. So you put the taller plants in the back with their cages, and then you would do the next one in front of them would be the lower bush type ones that will never get any higher than this. So just remember, think of where your sun is coming from. And you need to decide if you're going to put them in pots or in the ground. If you're going to do pots, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can move them around. If you really wanted tomatoes and you don't have the right kind of sun, you could move it all day long. You would be like super fit. So up to you. But pots are in the ground, just decide. And this, yes.
The best time to plant them would be like now?
Today.
Today.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
I always plant on February 1st in this area. Everybody is different in all regions, but yes. So we have, everyone thinks, oh my gosh, in Houston, Texas, you can grow whatever you want, whenever you want. It's just perfect. It is not perfect. We have very short seasons. We have 2 of them though. So we plant in February and again in August. So this thing that's happening right here is a complete anomaly that is left over from the horror of 2020. So I planted it in August because it's the second growing season, and it should have been killed over the winter. You know, just would have been too cold and it wouldn't be here. So I would pull it out, but I left it so y'all could see how tall the tall ones get. But so really, you plant in February, and then by 4th of July, take them out because it's way too hot for them. So you completely empty it out. By 4th of July, you let it sit, and then plant again in August, and then Christmas or whenever it starts getting cold, get them out of there again. And the other kind of weird thing is so you think you found the perfect location, that's the perfect sunny spot, so you're always going to do them there because they were successful, but no. You have to rotate. You cannot come back to that same patch of dirt for 4 years because it's there's just soil-borne illnesses and viruses that tomatoes are they're kind of a pain, but they're so perfect in the end. But so they are really hard on your soil, and they can leave stuff in your soil. So ideally, like I have 4 beds, so this gets it. I mean, it switches. I mean, it's not, 4 years is the perfect time. If you can't do 4 years, for sure 2. But you need to leave it and let it sit for that long. Now, determinate versus indeterminate. So a tomato is a vine. So you can see that actually looks like a vine. I mean, you can see how it is a vine. So this is an indeterminate, and this is a vine. So this is why it needs a cage. So you just plant it just like this, and it doesn't look very good, and you would think I would never buy that. But this is what it looks like because it's a vine. So you just get it like this, and then you put the cage, once it's planted, put the cage over it, and then you can prop it up on the side against the edge of the cage. I mean, of the little support. But this is indeterminate, and it means it's no limit to the number of tomatoes it can grow, and pretty much no limit to how high it will grow. If you look at that one, can you see it's growing above it, and it's still flowering? I mean, that thing could just go forever. I mean, after y'all leave, I'll cut it off and pull it out. I mean, until the tomatoes are ripe. But so this is indeterminate. Indeterminate in size and indeterminate in the number of fruits it produces. Now this and this is determinate. And you can see how like this is so sturdy, like it's stocky, and this one is all leggy. So this is a determinate, and so it's determined how high it will get, and it's determined how many fruits it will have. So with these, they all kind of ripen at the same time. So this can go on all season, and that's why that craziness is going on. But this only gets a certain height, and it's already determined how many fruits it will bear, and they kind of all come at the same time. So you wouldn't want to plant like 10 of these, because you'd be like, holy moly, this one, you know, you just have way too much, unless you're a big canner or something.
And then it's gone.
So indeterminate and determinate. So you need to decide.
Will that
What's
say
your
it
space?
if you're buying it?
Yes.
Or you just identify it by the vine?
No,
versus
it will
not?
say on there. So when you buy, so if you look at a seed catalog, which I just like, I could practically read this in bed. I'm like, oh. So there's just a bazillion kinds of tomatoes in here. Look at all my dog ear, that's embarrassing. But anyway, so there's all kinds of tomatoes in here, and it will tell you determinate, determinate, or indeterminate, and then it will also tell you if you look on the seed pack, and you wouldn't necessarily get a seed, but this will be on the little ticket, the little thing when you get your tomato. So this one is called Container Choice Red. That would give you a clue that it's going to be a container, because the little tiny ones are always, you can always grow them in a container. These are harder the indeterminate is harder to grow in a container, because you have the pot, you put it in there, you put the cage on it, and then, I mean, it just can be unwieldy. So it's doable, but these are easier, and they'll say determinate, but they'll also be called like bush or patio. Yes, ma'am.
If you have a trellis, can you just kind of tie
Yeah.
it to the trellis and not use the cage?
Yes, you could just get bread ties, or they make garden ties, or even string. You could do kitchen string.
That green tape.
Yeah, that green tape that you can pull. But yes, you can just do it to the trellis. So this will say, like on the back of the seed thing, it says it's grown for containers, and at the very end it says determinate. And then this one, which is this one, also says determinate. It is not. So you have to. So I just know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just know that this one. I know
because
what
that's
this
more
one is.
vine-like.
And so I know this is wrong,
okay.
but I still know the name of it is this. So whoever, I mean, I even wrote "ha ha" on the back of it because it doesn't make any sense. But so if you're in the store looking at the tag, it's not the worst idea in the world to check it on your phone, because whoever grew it and the internet, not like the internet's always right, but you would just have at least a chance of saying, But the other way to tell is if you're buying the plant, if they're stocky like this, I mean, it's stocky and stout. They're really heavy in the, in the stem, then you can tell. And also, like, they're all just much more compact. But, so you will say determinate and indeterminate. So, anytime it says patio, bush, or container, that's determinate, and that would work if you're going to do that situation. Okay, so your soil. Potting soil, right here, is for pots. But like garden soil is not for pots, because this has stuff in it that makes it lighter and makes it drain better. So it's for pots. But you can also, if you just felt like it, it's more expensive, but you could put it in your garden. This won't hurt that, but that would hurt your pot. So it just wouldn't drain properly. And this one is a super duper nice one, because it's got compost in it and earthworm castings in it. Anyway, it's a nice one, but just read and see. You don't want to have like fertilizer in there that's not organic or something like that. You want the nicest soil that you can have. So when you are going to get your soil ready, so you get nice soil, and that's wonderful. this is MicroLife 624. I always think of it, you know that, I'm not going to sing because it's being recorded, but you know that Chicago song, that 624, yes, that 25624, that's how you remember it. But get the green 624, and this is organic. You can touch it with your hands, but it won't hurt anybody, and it's great, great, great for what's going on in your soil, because that's where the key is. You're not feeding your plant, you're feeding the soil so that the plant can eat it. So this, when you're going to dig your hole, you just sprinkle a little bit in the hole. And this, like I said, you can't overdo it on this. I mean, you don't need to go nuts, but you won't hurt your plant. And, okay, this is expanded shale. Do not say anything. You would think, seriously, it could be a drinking game, how often I say expanded shale. I love, this is my Valentine, I love expanded shale. So, yeah, I'm on the Expanded Shale Council of America. So, what,
kickback.
yeah, exactly. That's how I, no, okay. So, what it is it's shale that's baked really, really long time and really high. And so it makes these little, I don't know if you can see it, they're just little stone-looking things, and they're very, very porous. So in your garden soil or in your pot, they absorb water and hang on to it until it's dry enough on the surrounding them to release it. And also, it's like a little condo for microbes and everything else, because there's all these little crannies in there. So this is just the perfect thing. Every time I dig a hole, anytime for anything, this goes in there. And you almost can't use too much of it. I mean, you could almost do, you wouldn't quite do half this and half soil, but that still wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So I mean, probably like a third. So you dig your hole, and then here's your mound of dirt that you just took out. Put a little of this in there, put a little handful of this, and then put a handful of this in that mound of dirt, mix it up, and then as you put it back in, it'll be the new soil, the soil will come back in better. And that helps, it really breaks up that gumbo-y hard, not hard, but that heavy clay that we had. So, all day, every day. And you can get them in this little size, or they make a big, like almost like a big dog food size. And that's what I have, since I just put it everywhere. Let's see. Okay, so tomatoes are super heavy feeders. So this first number is nitrogen, and this is what they eat a lot of. So this is just all-purpose general for anything you want to plant, but tomatoes too. But the problem is they eat up this first number a lot. So you need to, over the course of while you're growing it, add it back in. So because it won't be balanced anymore. So this one, this one shows it better. Can you see that it's 1200? So the other one was 624, and this is 1200. So this is, these are doing fine with this and just how life is for a tomato, but this needs help. So this you want to add back in. So it's blood meal. That's what it looks like, and here's another one. And you just read on the back how you put it in. It's brown, and it's really fine, so you wouldn't do it necessarily on a day like today that's a little bit windy, because it'll kind of blow away. But just sprinkle it on and barely work it in. And once your tomato's in the ground, you just would put it around, almost like you would do when they tell you to feed a tree, almost around the drip line. So this will go on throughout the season. Now, I am a little bit of a meddler. Yes?
How often do you put that on?
I would say like maybe 2 or 3 times during the season. So you'd put it in the beginning. Okay. So even though you just did 624 in your hole, I'd still add a little of this just to give it a start. And then a couple times during the season, which is just until your tomato is done, like for the Determinate, until it's done its thing and it's not producing anymore, and this, until you decide you're taking it out. But for February, it would be by 4th of July, you're done. And this, you can also add earthworm castings. This is just an extra thing. You don't actually need it if you're doing all this. Just if you felt like it, you could, but it's not necessary. But like I was saying, I'm a little bit of a meddler, and so I don't like to just leave them be. So I've just told you all you need to do, but I still like to mess with them. So you can get, it is not necessary, fish fertilizer or seaweed. So all you do is, these are liquid, and here you just shake it up, pour it in your watering can, mix it, dilute it. You have to read what it is, the ratio. And then you just pour it on. So this is, you would be feeding the leaves. So it's called foliar feeding. So you're not feeding, like this feeds the soil itself. This feeds the plant through its leaves, but also it gets on the soil. So normally you would not do it, and I'm not going to do it to these tomatoes, but in this sun, because you know, like, remember when you're little and you go swimming, and then as soon as you get out and it's so hot and your skin gets so dry, so you wouldn't, like, you don't want to get them wet and then have it just dry out, because this is kind of rough on them. But that's all it is literally you just do it on the leaves and get all the leaves, and they'll eat that. And you can do this, again, I'm kind of a meddler, but it's probably twice during the season too, but if you did it once a week, it wouldn't be the worst thing. It's just, it's really only money at this point on how often you want to do it.
So you say not to do it when it's real sunny?
Yeah, because it's like this that I just did, it will dry out and it won't burn it, but it's just rough on it.
So early in the morning or in the evening?
Early in the morning's better, always. Okay, so when you're planting them, since this is a vine, everywhere that, here, I don't know if you can see. So everywhere that these are coming out, if you buried it all up and down here, roots would come out. So if this grew in its natural habitat, whatever that is, it would grow along the ground and roots would come out all along. And that's how it would grow. So when you dig this hole for this plant, you can dig it like so far deep that this goes in. Like that's where the soil could be. So as far as you can go. I mean, within reason. And all you do is you just pick this stuff off and then bury it. And if you don't want to pick it, you can snip it. So you just bury them as deep as you can go. And I'm trying to see if oh, here's a good example. So if you saw this in a store, this is a problem because this broke. And so this just cannot be. So you would get rid of that. But this, if you will see, like it already knew it was hurt here, and it started fixing itself right here. So even if you have, I mean, if you saw this, you wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I have to have that. But you could. It's not it will be okay. I mean, these want to grow. But plant deep, and as soon as you plant it with, remember this and the expanded shale, you should water it in. So that gets it all comfy and gets the soil settled in and makes sure there's not too many air pockets around where you just planted it. So it makes it at home quicker. And if you're going to use mulch, because it's very pretty when everything's all mulched, the best mulch is compost. So mulch is really just a thing. A mulch is just something you put on top of your soil. It can be pine needles, it can be compost, it can be those big chunky bark things you think of, but compost is actually the best mulch you can use. So it won't even say mulch, it'll just be compost. So if you are going to put mulch compost on the top, make sure you do this, or whatever you're going to do to the soil first, and then put it on, because if you do it backward, then you're just feeding the compost and not the soil. And it will eventually get on down there, but that's not really the point. Okay, so now those, are we good? Everybody questions? Okay, so the cages. They make really tall cages, and then they make cute little cages. So the problem with the cute little cages is those are really for like some small eggplant and for peppers. And you think it's for tomatoes, but it's really not. So, because look, that does not help you at all. So get the tallest cage you can, but it still won't help you because it's here. So this one that's supported, it's a cage, and you can go look at it afterwards. It's one cage in the ground, and then it's another cage upside down, and they're just zip tied together, and that gives you as much height as you want. Super
Meg,
secret.
what if you just get the determinate tomato? You still need the...
No, because it'll be, and you're most likely, I mean, that's like, if you think about it, it'll grow in a pot, so it won't probably even need, I mean, it might need that little thing. I don't think so. If you just got one that happened to be a variety that's bigger than a normal determinate, but usually they're just fine on their own.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a difference between the taste or the flavor of the determinate and the non-determinate?
No, so it's just, no. So generally, little tiny cherry tomatoes or sweet 1 million or whatever, those are generally indeterminate because they just grow and produce for a very long period of time. They do make determinate that are cherry, but if you think about it, there's just not as much space to have as many tomatoes of a cherry variety. I mean, the plant's only going to get that tall, so it
would
would
be very
clog it
little
all.
tomato, yeah.
Yeah, but the vine type, indeterminate, goes forever and produces forever. So like the yellow pear, the little cherries, all those are generally indeterminate. And these won't get you like, you see that state fair freakishness, and someone has a tomato like that. I mean, that would not come off of indeterminate, but we wouldn't actually even grow that. We have such a short time, we wouldn't even have time to be in the state fair. Do we even have state fair? In Dallas, that's right. Tex. So once you're all growing and you've got them going, they're all planted and happy with where they are, you want to pinch off some bottom parts because, like I said, they're not dirty. I hate to call them names, but what happens is, remember I was saying you had to move the soil, you had to move them around each year because they get funk in the soil, so what happens is the water bounces off here of the dirt when it rains or the sprinkler, and it bounces back up, and so whatever's in the soil that they left can bounce back and give your plants diseases. So if you could, it's harder on a determinate because you don't have to look like a, what is it, go dog go tree or something, I don't know. But you do just pinch off until, just to try to give it some space to not have anything bounce off the soil back up into your leaves. It's much easier on this because that's plenty. But do try to do it, so just keep it tidy that way. And then also with pruning. So you can cut these, you know how you think, oh, what is it, Valentine's is when you do roses. You can prune these anytime. There's not like a, today I will prune. It is just whenever it's bugging you. Like that, we top them off all the time because they will grow through the roof. And sometimes they'll grow too far this way and you can't walk by them. So just trim all you want. And it's not the worst idea on the vine ones to get in there and kind of trim off some stuff in the middle so that the air can go through, because it can get just too congested in there, and you can't, without the good airflow, you can get more bugs and stuff like that. You want to prune just like you want to water if you're going to do this. Where's the fire? You want to do, is he through there?
No, you got a butterfly.
Oh. Making that noise? You want to prune in the morning on kind of a cloudy day because it's going to leave a wound. So if it leaves a wound, and if it's, not even a cloudy day, just in the morning on a dry day, because it will have more time to heal over before something can get in there and cause trouble for you. So just you wouldn't do it on a wet day. And then when you're pruning, so like I said, this is kind of a weird thing that shouldn't be happening, but you wouldn't prune it that much. It's just I was just trying to save the last tomatoes before I pull it out. So you don't need to make it that sparse because it does need some leaves to protect the fruits from the sun, and that's how it's photosynthesis and all that. Shall I go into that? But do keep some leaves. So really you just want to keep them tidy. So you'll see on, if you're going to prune them, so up here you'll start to see it, and you can go look in there and see where the flowers are starting to come. And so you want to do it underneath, like this one off the side, not the one that has the flower cluster on it, or you'll lose the flower cluster. But on indeterminate, you do have to cut off some of the flower clusters because they're at the top, and so you need to keep topping it off or it'll get too tall for you. So the size of the fruit, that's what you were asking, Linda. There's mini cherry, like sweet 1 millions. I think they are so great. They're teeny tiny and so good, so sweet. Cherry, yellow pear, and then the large kind, and then Romas. Romas are really for paste. I mean, people, I mean, you can eat them obviously, but it's more like if you're going to be canning or making tomato sauce or something like that. The very best, remember I was saying that you should cut it off so that it didn't splash back up. That drip, if you can have a drip irrigation system, that's the very best for it. I don't do that, but you should, if you want to. But I don't have that set up. I have sprinklers, so that's how we do it. But it just helps with once again, we're trying to keep soil-borne illnesses away from your plants. So if you had drip, there would be no splashing. And I already talked to you about the heavy feeding. So remember it was, it's this last number, remember? I mean the first number, it's the 12. So this, you can also do this with this. This is more efficient and easier, but you can do this. It's the same principle. Let me see if it has its numbers. Oh, it's 900. So we're still dealing with that first number, the nitrogen. This is also something that you put on your lawn to stop weeds. It doesn't stop weeds if they're here. It's pre-emergent. So what it does is controls the germination of seeds. So it has nothing to do with your tomatoes except for to give them nitrogen. But if you're going to have tomatoes and then you think you're going to do squash or something with a seed, you wouldn't want to use this because you need to wait like 90 days or something before you put a seed in the same patch of earth, or else it will impede its germination. So, but this is another kind of meddling thing that I do.
What
Yes.
about suckers? Do
Yeah.
you take them off?
You can or
Does it
not. It just
help?
depends. It just is part of keeping it tidy.
Okay, so it doesn't like suck the
No.
life out of it?
No, because they'll still, a sucker will still go on to grow its own flowers. You know, I mean, if you had for some reason a sucker that never produced anything, then you can get rid of it. But you can also get rid of it in just being tidy. You know, if it's bugging you. Okay, so then caterpillars. The things that, okay, it is so sad. You will see your tomato and it's beautiful, and then it'll have this little, but you don't, it's always on the back side. They don't ever come in like where you can see it. But so you wait until it's perfect, and then you pick it, and then there's a little hole in it. It's, God knows. I'll tell you what it is. It is these caterpillars. And so you have got to stay on top of it. It will, if you see one single, what you think is a little moth, get after it. You're not hurting the moth, you're hurting the caterpillar that will turn into the moth. But you don't spray the moth. That will not help you. You're spraying the fruit, and you do it at night in the evening because they feed at night. But this stuff is organic. It's got a crazy name that I could never say, but just BT. It's called, I don't even want to say it. Anyway, it's very, very, do you know how to say it?
Bacillus thuringiensis.
Something like that. But, yes, so BT. BT. So you need to go to Southwest Fertilizer, get BT, and I keep it in just also for $1.98 there. You just get one of those spray things, a regular old spray thing. Mix it up however it says, and then be sure and write on a piece of tape that it's BT, because you don't want, there's other stuff you might use for somewhere else, and you want to know that it's BT, and you want to be very careful when you're spraying it. Don't do it in the wind, because it is going to get every caterpillar who comes and eats it. So no other caterpillar is coming to your tomatoes except for ones you don't want. So it's not like a monarch is going to visit your tomatoes, so you're okay. But if you overspray, so if I sprayed here and it got into some other plants and the caterpillar ate it, it would still do the same thing. And it is a grisly death. I will describe it if you like, but what they deserve, however. Stay on top of this. So this is one of those other things that you almost can't overdo, but just be careful and just go look. So as soon as you see like little chewed holes, you either see a moth or little chew holes, then you have it. And so you have them and they're there. And so they're probably going to be there for your whole, the whole season, because your whole life until the end of, but you just have to stay on top of it. And like I said, do it in the evening when it's not windy. And you wouldn't do it every evening, maybe once every 10 days or 2 weeks or something like that. But also if you can see them, if you see a hole in a leaf, if you turn it over, sometimes you'll see it. Gross. February. It is February. But I plant February 1st. If the worst happens and you have a freeze and you lost your plant, well, it would be nothing for you because yours is free. But it's like $1.98 for a plant, maybe $3 at the worst. So it is totally worth it to get your head start going and risk having a freeze. But once again, we did have not really a freeze, but that's still going. So you can put freeze cloth. You can actually just put a bucket over it. If it's if it's super tender and small, then it might need a bucket or something, a pail over it. But you're fine. You're better off doing it early and then just risk it. So I already talked about that we have 2 growing seasons, start in February, start in August. As soon as it gets a certain, I think it's 70 degrees at night, then they won't flower anymore. And so the fruit that's already on the vine will finish its thing, but they won't flower anymore, and they can't, it just can't happen anymore. So you go ahead and finish out what's on the plant and rip them out. And then once you rip them out, then you really do go and do all this to your soil for sure. The cornmeal or the blood meal, because you want to. It's going to be low on nitrogen, and you can, if you really want to have fun. I don't know if it's fun, but you can send off your soil to Texas A&M or any agriculture department of a state or a state university, and it's like $10 or $12, and they'll tell you what you need to add to your soil. It'll tell you how much you have of nitrogen and you can pay for as much information as you want. You could go down to manganese and copper, but and then it will also tell you how much you need to put back into that soil to fix it. I just know you need to put that nitrogen back in, so I don't necessarily do it. But it's not the worst if you did it the first couple times, just to see for your own situation. So if you get the cherry kind, you have a better chance of having tomatoes, because if you think about it, if the caterpillars get to it, then you had 15. You started with 15. If you have a big one, you just have that one. So it just depends on, you have more success with the cherry type, just because there's more chance for success. So bees, as you know, pollinate plants. Tomatoes do it by the wind. So, I mean, bees can do whatever they want because they are it. But, so when the little flowers are out, I'm a thumper. So, like, say this has flowers, I just walk by and go like this. And what it is it gets the pollen from one flower to the other flower. Farmers, like full-on big farming operations, have like string in between the whole rows, and then they just rotate that string so it thumps. But I'm a thumper, and you'll like it. Kind of fun. So remember I talked about how dirty they are for whatever reason. So don't put anything that was a tomato or had anything to do with a tomato in your compost. Don't put your leaves. Don't put the things you cut off, and don't put any part of your tomato. And speaking of dirty, this is so rude, but so this is my tomato shirt. That will ruin your clothes. So before you go in to specially spray with this, not that you don't want this on you, this turns like a lime green weird color that you won't notice is on your clothes until they've already been washed, dried, and then you put them on the next time and you're like, what is that? It's tomato. So just have a tomato shirt that you use when you're with tomatoes. And also, I've had like one of those caterpillars come in with me, but it was on this and not me, so I was happier. But get a tomato shirt. And then water evenly. When you water, sometimes they'll split. If your tomatoes, it looks like you think, oh my gosh, they're just so robust because I'm such a fabulous farmer, that they were bursting. But what it is they've had inconsistent water. So if you keep obviously if it rains, there's not a lot you can do about it, but just make sure that you're not going to one extreme to the other. And they don't like wet feet. So do let them, think how far you just planted them down, that it's always has much more soil, water in the soil further down, so even if it's dry at the top, they're actually doing okay down there. And if you've added that expanded shale, they can manage themselves quite well. But so you don't let them dry out, but if you were going to choose what rude thing to do, you would let them be drier than wet. And if they're in a pot, you have to water them pretty much every day. Because in a pot, the clay draws out all the moisture, and so they will suffer a little bit.
Do you put shale in your pots too? Or just
That's what I'm saying, a drinking game. Everywhere. Anytime I practically touch the dirt.
I just wanted to see you drink.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you do too much when you put it in the hole?
If you went more than, like I said, half soil, half shale would be pretty heavy shale.
Okay.
But it still wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And it also gives, like I said, it's a little, look, here I go, my shale. So it gives you the little, like I said, the little condo for the microorganisms, and then it holds onto the water, but then it also gives the roots something to hold on to. Instead of clumping together, they like to have something to work their way around. So you almost can't do too much with shale.
Which varieties have you?
Go ahead.
Which varieties have you found to be the best that you think grow the easiest? Or
Well, and really, if you go to Buchanan's or another place in Time or any of the local owned shops, even Southwest Fertilizer has them. They'll have what grows well here. Yellow pears, oh my gosh. Do y'all ever eat those? They're so good, and they grow really, really, really well here.
And there's a recommended vegetable varieties for Harris County that's on the TAMU, the A&M website.
When should you pick the fruit? Sometimes it gets kind of like overdone. You don't have too much time. Or you're just so eager that you.
I'm a meddler. I mean, how would that happen? That would be a wily tomato to get away. But you can pick them. I mean, if you are really having trouble with birds or something and you just cannot deal, you can pick them. Like when I clean up my bed, oftentimes they're still completely green ones that fall off in the dirt, and then I just take them inside, and then they, on their own, they ripen. So they will ripen. I like to keep them on vine as long as you can, but if you are having trouble, you can pick them even when they're green, and that wouldn't be ideal. But you can, I mean, I've heard that first blush, anytime first blush and on is okay. You all good?
Well, so I have kind of one designated, raised bed to plant, tomatoes in. And then you said you really shouldn't plant them again in the same spot. So should you just empty out the whole bed of the soil, or?
I think you would actually have to sit it out. Like you would do tomatoes 1 year, and then, or one season, and then come back and do squash in the fall, and then do eggplant, and then, I mean, I don't know how big it is if you just have a couple plants.
Well, no, it's about 6 to 8 feet.
Oh, well, what you could do is just do half. So you would do half tomatoes over here, and then, but you would have to sit out every now and again. But so you could either do half lengthwise, or half this way, and but you will have to sit it out a little bit.
Okay.
so I do pots. What's the best netting? Is there special netting, or I use that green tulle almost, and it didn't work that great.
There is bird netting. I mean,
Okay.
if you could have water somewhere for your birds.
That's it. Okay.
Give that a whirl. And also birds, it's never easy with birds. But even if you have water, they prefer it if it's moving. So, like, they hear it and come to it better if it's moving.
So basically, I have to put a fountain out.
I do. I mean, there's
That's a great
Start
idea.
thinking about how expensive each one of these
I
tomatoes
know,
is.
exactly. $3,000 later.
Yeah.
But you can enter in a flower show.
Yeah. There you go.
Good attention payers. Yeah.